The year was 1937. A minister, well-known minister in New York, fancied himself as a writer. And he wrote, 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 and he was rejected every single time. Now, it's 1937. He's pissed. How many times can a writer be rejected and maintain his dignity? Pissed. He took his latest manuscript. He picked it up. He dropped it in a waste paper basket, turned to his wife, Ruth, and said, "Don't you ever take that manuscript out of that waste paper basket. Don't you ever touch that manuscript." His wife, Ruth, believed in him, not only as a great minister, but she thought he was a great writer. In fact, in that frozen moment of time, she believed in him more than he believed in himself. So she plotted. The next day, a well-known New York publisher had on his desk a gift-wrapped item. It looked strange, strange-looking item. He took off the gift wrapping. It was a waste paper basket. She never took the manuscript out of the waste paper basket. And because it was delivered in such a bizarre form, he read it. It was called The Art of Living. It became a bestseller. 15 years later, this author would write, The Power of Positive Thinking, one of the most beloved books in American history. His name? Norman Vincent Peale. There is magic in believing. Our next speaker, Dr. Jane Goldberg, knows more about the magic of believing than any of us, including me. She is a certified psychoanalyst. She is the founder of Group Analysis. Jane's early career was marked by a march through hell. In order, when she was young, her mother passed away from terminal cancer. Her sister passed away from terminal cancer. Her brother was murdered in cold blood. It's enough to ruin a life, but not Jane. She took her psychoanalytical training and began applying it to cancer patients, giving them hope, giving them belief, giving them faith. And some had miraculous cures as a result of her work. She's the author of 8 books, many of which have been highly acclaimed. My Mother, My Daughter, Myself. The Dark Side of Love. She has appeared on numerous talk shows, more than I can list. But just as a brief summary, the Sally Jesse Raphael Show, the Donahue Show, the Maury Povich Show. She is the founder of La Casa Spas and Wellness Centers in New York, Puerto Rico, and someday Montclair, New Jersey. Her latest book, Our Revolutionary Brain, How We Feel, Think, and Become Smarter. Oh, folks in this world, and Janet's referred to it subtly, we need to feel, think, and become a truckload smarter. Dr. Jane Goldberg.
when I come to these events, I come to hear Stephen Feldstein. I'm crying about hearing about myself. How bizarre is that? He's just, he does his research on his people, and he fashions a story that is fascinating and great. And I appreciate our last speaker's emphasis on storytelling. She's talking about storytelling in film. My business is storytelling. I'm a psychoanalyst, and I listen to stories all day, except they're using words, not visual. And I'm going to talk about that in my presentation if we can get it up. So the thing about storytelling is that the brain actually is primed to be a storyteller. It is in our neurological makeup that we need stories, we want stories, we love stories. And we need a password for my computer. And it's the PowerPoint. I'm good with writing. I am technically neurologically challenged. So if he can't figure it out, neither can I. But it's not what, that is not what's showing on my computer.
Where can we get your newest book?
Oh, okay, I'll start talking, even without my PowerPoint. So the newest book, Steve, is no longer called Our Revolutionary Brain. I worked 15 years on this book. I did 3 books, it's the longest time that I've ever spent writing a book. I did 3 books in between. And it was originally called Our Revolutionary Brain. But then as I'm getting ready to do the final version of it, I realized it's not just about the brain. You don't have a brain without having a psyche and without having a mind. So it's about feelings, and it's about thinking also. And those, yes, they originate in the brain, but they don't end in the brain. So I had to change the title of it, which I did change about a month ago, actually. Oh, here we are. Let me eliminate Elizabeth Emily Wayne. We don't need to see her. Here, this needs to go.
Not a math person, but I will.
What are we figuring out? Oh, perfect.
Do you want me to stay here and move through?
So I don't know how we should do it. Yes, I guess, because I should be here for the video, yes?
Yeah.
I should not be over there for the video? I'm asking you video people.
That's, yeah, if you want to go off to the side and watch from the side, it's up to your preference.
Do you want to go through?
Yeah, so then should I take this off?
No, you can keep that up.
No,
Definitely keep it on. Can't hear it.
But, okay, so this one is not on. Yeah, I think it would be better for me to be looking at it. So, so I'm presenting a PowerPoint. And everybody knows who Jeff Bezos is, right? So he banned PowerPoint in executive meetings because it helps people to know how to not think. It just presents information. And General Mattis, I'm not sure who he was or is, except that he's with the US Marine Corps, but I did find this quote from him, PowerPoint makes us stupid. And the reason why Bezos doesn't like it is because it doesn't give you well-structured narrative text, and I'm going to return to that in a few minutes. So having said that, we're now all in love with film. We're all going to go see lots of movies because our last speaker told us how amazing film is. Film is a visual medium. And so I'm not going to go through all these, but if you can just read them as I'm talking. And by the way, if you're reading this and listening to me, and you think you're doing both, you think you're multitasking. You're not. Multitasking doesn't exist. You're doing one or the other. So feel free to read it and not listen to me. But anyway, the visual sense is the one that really is the primary sense that we operate from. So having said that PowerPoint should not be used because Jeff Bezos doesn't like it, the fact is it is a very good medium. So, so having listened to Jeff Bezos and then ignoring what he said because I am doing a PowerPoint, I'm completely contradicting myself, and so I am welcoming you to the world of neuroscience, which is contradictions all over the place. So everybody knows about what an MRI is. I recently had an MRI. I was having a little trouble with my knee, and so I decided to have an MRI and see what was going on. Figured it out, got rid of it after a couple of weeks. Nevertheless, MRIs are one of the standard tests, totally accepted by everyone, every MD, every X-ray radiology office as being consistent, as being accurate, as being believable, except it wasn't for a long time. After it was created, this one guy, Bruce Lee, found out that there was something wrong with the stats that they were using, how they were using the formulas. I'm not a statistician person, so I don't understand exactly what he found out, but the conclusion was, as you can see, that 40,000 studies were incorrect. Can you imagine how many MRIs that were given? Millions of MRIs were given that possibly had inaccurate results, because the world of neuroscience is still developing, and it contradicts itself. This is who I am. I don't need to go over it again because Steve did a really good job with it. This is all of the books that I've written, except the new one that I'm actually here to talk about. It's why Steve invited me today. I have written for Huffington Post. I've written for newspapers. I've published in academic journals. I've published in magazines that you've read. I love writing, and I write for everybody. These are my two spas in New York and Puerto Rico. The one in New York I closed at the beginning of COVID, so it's no longer there. And I also opened up a spa at the 92nd Street Y that was called Inspirations, which similarly is closed. So the only one open now is the one in Puerto Rico, and I need to get a new logo for it. So this is Puerto Rico. This is Loquillo Beach. I'm just going to go through these. This is all of this is very close to my farm in Puerto Rico. Oh, I skipped a picture. Let me go back to, yeah. This is from my cottage, the main house. We have artists that live there, and every surface that is blank is no longer blank. Every wall, every ceiling, every place in the entire complex has art. And we have two domes. This is one of them. This is the other one. This is the yurt, which is totally amazing. It's huge. This I call the poop with a view. This is the entrance to the bathroom for the yurt, and you can see the view is pretty spectacular. This is a bedroom. This is all the rooms have couches. Have balconies. And because I have specialized in holistic health, I've kind of had two careers or three careers. I'm a writer, I'm a psychoanalyst, but also I'm a holistic health practitioner, and thus I opened those three spas, holistic health centers. So this is just, we do also treatments, and this is one, face rejuvenation. And this one, actually, Steve, I think your wife would be interested in this. It's a vibroacoustical. Isn't she into that? No? I thought she was. Here is the cover for the new book, which probably will be next week. I'll have it. Really worked to have it today, but didn't make it. So why do I begin the book with why? Why's the word of curiosity? Curiosity is what fosters intelligence. The word cura, C-U-R-A, is Latin word, and that is the etymologically is the root of both curiosity and cure. So I'm going to try to practice that word. Etymologically, thank you. So the cure is curiosity. So as a psychoanalyst, I'm asking questions all the time. I'm asking, why do you feel this way? Why did you do that? Why did he do that? Why do you think blah, blah, blah? So why is my first favorite word. And that's why I decided to have the title of the book have why in it. Wired, of course, we're all electrical beings. Wired for why. My second favorite word is but. That was Oliver Sacks. Everybody knows who Oliver Sacks was. Neurologist, neuroscientist, best-selling author. It was his first favorite word. Why did Oliver Sacks love the word but? Because but it suggests contradiction. It suggests opposite. I love you, but oh, I can't stand how your feet smell, or whatever it is. But gives complex thinking because of the contradiction in but. And no is my third favorite word. Why do I love no? Because no is the first word of separation. When the breast is in the mouth and the baby spits out the breast, the baby is saying, no, I'm not hungry anymore. Or the 13-year-old is saying, no, I'm not going there. Or whatever it is the no is the definition of identity, the first definition of identity. So, and as I say, the beginning of selfhood. And now we're on, so what I did was I just took some sample chapters of the book, and I'll just talk a little about each chapter. So the brain basically is very uninteresting. It does nothing on its own. So I've been a vegetarian for 60 years, I think. And by the way, when I do give talks, I usually start by telling my age. You know, when you ask a 6-year-old, how old are you? He says 6.5. He doesn't say 6. He says 6.5. So I'm going to tell you, I'm 79 1/3. My birthday is in May. And I begin my age because for the last, 10 years, I think I've aged really well. And it's because I have an amazing lifestyle. So I've been vegetarian for about 60 years. And so I do eat tofu. In fact, I brought tofu. I have a little tofu dish with me today. I hate tofu. Tofu anybody that has had tofu knows it is the most uninteresting food on the planet. The only thing that you can do with tofu is mix it with other things and then make it delicious. So the brain is like that too. The brain doesn't do anything on its own. It needs things. So part of the difficulty of talking about the brain is that the research is rapidly moving so quickly that what you know today is not what you know tomorrow or yesterday. So it's been, because research results are constantly being overturned and changed, like the MRI example, what you just have to keep being up to date. Maybe that's why it took me 15 years to write this book, because I'd finish it. I finished it 1,000 times, and then I would read something else, a research finding that just happened, and oh my God, I can't finish the book without including that. So brain research is very ongoing. So the main thing about the brain that is best to understand, most important to understand, is that it's all about the connections. It doesn't operate without the connections. And so I really like this quote by geneticist Mark Thomas. It's not how smart you are, it's how well connected you are. Of course, that's true both on the brain level. It's also true on the social level. If we're not connected socially, we're isolated, and that's big trouble, which I'll get into in a minute also. Okay, so this is chapter 3. So this is an old example of how the brain is built and how it functions that actually is not accurate. They don't use this metaphor anymore of the ice cream cone, but nevertheless, sometimes metaphors are good heuristics. They're just good for learning, even if they're literally inaccurate. So I still like it and refer to it. So the old brain is the bottom one, and that is the brain that we share with reptiles. And then the new brain is the strawberry flavor, because I like strawberry. It's not my favorite flavor, and that's the mammalian brain. And from that, we got the limbic system, which means that we develop feelings. So these are all evolutionary changes of what our brain went through. And then the newest brain which I call the human flavor. And of course, that's chocolate, which is everybody's favorite. That gave us warm-bloodedness. That gave us our neocortex. Out of our neocortex and our frontal lobes, we're able to think. So we're able to go for survival, which is instinctual. We're able to feel, and then we're able to think. So thinking is what it is that humans do that most animals don't do in a very complex way. They do think, which I go into in the book, but they don't think quite as sophisticatedly as humans do. So this is chapter 4, why F is the most important letter. And I go into that. Okay, I guess I don't. Yes, this is why F is the most important letter in terms of survival is fight, flight, feed, frolic, fornication. Okay, I just came across this little bit of information that I thought was pretty fascinating, that the word F-U-C-K comes from forced, unwanted, carnal knowledge. Who knew that? I didn't know that. I don't think anybody I know knew that. But that was pretty fascinating to me. So this is the first brain. This is the brain that we share with all the animals that can't think. It's what I share with the roach that was walking on my living room floor the other day. He's out for survival. He doesn't think about whether or not he will sense my presence and he'll run away because that's his fight flight. But he's not thinking. He's not thinking, oh, that's Jane. She doesn't mind roaches. She's not going to kill me. I grew up with roaches. I grew up in New Orleans. We had really large roaches, and they fly. And we have them in Puerto Rico, too. And so when people come, they get kind of freaked out. I don't know. Roaches don't bother me very much. So I let the guy live that I saw on my living room floor the other day. Okay, so the psyche is part of the rat brain, the mammalian brain. And this is where we feel from. And we feel all kinds of feelings, good and bad. And the next one is where we think from. And when we started thinking, if I have to go in the forest, maybe there are blueberries, maybe they're not. But no, if I could grow blueberries, then I'd have blueberries all year. So that thinking brain is what led to our farming. So F is important because it's like a heuristic. It helps you to remember. Okay, so you know who the person on the right is. That's Marilyn Monroe. I just love that quote that she decided that she had the pleasure of having the most wonderful memory for forgetting things. I think she didn't forget enough or she wouldn't have had the death that she had. But anyway, that's a different story. So the one on the left is Beth Loftus. She was my professor in graduate school at the New School. And she's done the best research on memory of any of the neuroscientists around, and what she has concluded is that memory really is an illusion. That though you think you remember something, you're confabulating all the time. You're putting in new stuff, you're throwing out old stuff that was real, but you've decided it's not real. And her research is so well received that now, she did a lot of research on first eyewitness testimony. And so now her research findings, if you're on a jury and it's a case where there's eyewitness testimony that counts, the judge now says, you have to know eyewitness testimony has been shown in research to be not terribly reliable. So that's about memory. Don't believe your memory all the time. And of course, in psychoanalysis, we're getting memories all the time with our patients. So I had 2 memories that kind of stayed with me for a long time, and then it blew my mind when I realized what the truth was. One memory was that I know my mother absolutely adored me. I have never felt loved by anybody as much as I felt loved by my mother. I have no memory of my mother telling me, I love you. I lived with that memory for decades. And then about a year ago, I was looking through I have her diary from when she met my father, and I wrote one of my books, My Mother, My Daughter, Myself. That material is in the book of my mother meeting my father and their whole relationship, in their courting. That was fun when I read her diary about that. And then I found some other papers, and there's a paper, it's a letter to me when I was at camp, and it said, I love you. And I said, oh my God, my mother did tell me I love you. My memory was completely wrong about that. And the other not so much a memory, but a belief from a memory was how loved I felt by my mother. I said to myself, I lived with this for years as kind of a mantra for who I am. I will never find anyone who loves me as much as my mother did. But I was wrong. I did find a man who loved me as much as my mother did. I'm not with him at the moment, but I did have that experience when we were together. So memory is fallible, is the point. Okay, so chapter 10, if you want to be smart, no brain is an island and intelligence is a team sport. So we were talking about Bell Labs before Steve came. And so Bell Labs has interested me because one of the people I talk about in the book is George Sperling, who discovered a memory system. And he worked at Bell Labs for a long time. And when he was living in New York and we were friends, I was always hearing about Bell Labs. So when I read this about Bell Labs, it was interesting to me that they had a colloquium where all of the people that worked at Bell Labs is like the predecessor of Google. Bell Labs did most of the stuff that we're using today, inventions that have been made, came out of research from Bell Labs. And so they had this organized colloquium where the scientists met and they shared what they were doing with each other and how they were thinking. And so this one man, Richard Hemming, he used to sit at the lunch table with all the chemists. And then some of the chemists got Nobel Prizes, and so then they moved on and didn't come to I don't know, maybe they got another job or whatever. So then he went to another table, and this table he was with the physicists, and then he learned all about physics, having lunch with physicists or chemists or psychologists like George Sperling was. So the point is Bell Labs really fostered integration, communication, and that leads me to a story that just happened that's related to the last speaker that we had about the political division right now in the country. So I really believe in group therapy, group analysis, and I appreciate, Steve, that you told me that I was the inventor or creator of it. I was one of the ones, but not the only one. And so as a psychoanalyst, I now make it a requirement that if I accept a new patient, I'm going to put them in group. So I've been running my groups for 50 years. Some of my patients that were in the original group are still with me. We're just growing old together. So one of my groups last week, I know that there's a red-blue division in the group members. And right after the death of Charlie, they started talking about it. And I knew that if they kept talking about it, it was going to get very antagonistic and ugly. And so I decided I'm not going to let that happen. I don't want that kind of antagonism in the group. And so I made some kind of psychoanalytic interpretation, which kind of changed the direction of the conversation. And then it was fine. And I didn't sleep that night. And I didn't sleep because I questioned my decision to not have that conversation happen. And when I woke up, well, I did get 2 hours sleep. I just didn't sleep a lot. I texted the woman that I knew was going to be the one that was going to be the off-angle person. And I told her about that decision, and she appreciated it because she was the one that was going to be, kind of out of sorts with the rest of the group. And then I came to the conclusion that if this group, we love each other, we talk to each other openly, we accept each other, we've been together for all these years. Obviously not all of them for 50 years, but some of them have been in the group for 10 years. We know each other. If we can't figure out how to have a conversation that is constructive, interactive, meaningful, and not destructive because they're opposite political views, if we can't do it, nobody on earth can do it. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, intelligence is a team sport. We got to keep talking to each other. So that was interesting, our little story about Thomas Edison. So does anybody know who that picture is? And you're so stupid, this is what his father wrote to him, that you're an insult to the family? That's Charles Darwin. That's what Charles Darwin's father said. And then everybody knows who Einstein was. And so the last sentence, he passed the math portion of this test for this well-known school, but he failed botany, zoology, and language sections. So that's really interesting to me because I was a B student all through high school. And then I went to college and I was pretty much a B student, except that I got 3 Ds. And the Ds I got were in those subjects, botany, zoology, and French. So, so I'm just, kind of want to toot my own horn here and tell you I'm as good as Einstein in that regard. Okay, so this is a little bit conversation that we're going to have. So this guy, published a parish. He needed to publish, to keep his job. And he lived next to a nunnery, and so he decided, well, I'm just going to use the nuns, and study them. And so he got the nuns to agree to donate their brains after they died. And so he did that. He looked at the brains of the dead nuns, and then he started looking at how the live nuns were functioning. And he found that there were nuns that showed absolute, after they died, they showed absolute deterioration in their brains, but they were completely well-functioning, completely linguistically excellent and communicative and just fine. But their brain showed that they should be really damaged. And then he also found the opposite. He found that people that had really intact brains were not functioning at all. So they did some further research, and what they looked at was, so because they were nuns, they had to write when they're 18 years old or 20 years old and they're entering the nunnery, they have to write a piece on why you want to become a nun. And they were, from looking at that information, they were able to predict with almost 100% accuracy which nuns would be the ones that would stop functioning in old age. And so remember about Jeff Bezos? Well, narration, whatever the quote was, I forget, but that textured and well-structured narrative. That's why we're not going to use PowerPoint. I'm talking at the top of my head for most of this, so it's probably not very well-structured, but you're getting the essence of what I'm saying, as opposed to speaking in truncated, short sentences like you do when you're texting somebody. So the nuns that had said, and you can do this research, it's in the book, this one nun who said, I found the calling and I developed my mental capacity for really understanding complex things. I mean, she was very complex in her thinking process at the age of 18. And then the nun who said, I lived in St. Joseph's, Michigan, and I joined the nunnery when I was 18. The one who had the complex thinking ability and the ability to put it into a narrative form of words and writing, those are the nuns that did well, no matter what their brains were. Those were the nuns. And so this particular one, at 103, she was perfect. That was a long story, but that's important research. Okay, this is the next important thing. So the book that I think I brought it. Okay, so my little dog Lily was about 6 years old and this big, and she was dying. I was $3,000 into vet bills. Nobody knew why she was dying, and they didn't know what to do to help her. And so then one of my psychoanalytic patients came. She'd just gotten a dog, and she saw Lily was lying on my lap, not moving. She said, "What's the matter with Lily?" And I said, "Well, she's dying, and we don't know why." She said, "Oh, you have to bring her to Donna on the Upper West Side." So I called whoever Donna was on the Upper West Side and got an appointment that night. So Lily is in my lap, and Donna gives her a treatment. She puts some tubing around her and gives her a treatment. And Lily had not eaten in a week. As a vegetarian, I have to tell you, this really disgusted me, but I was going to Whole Food and I was getting raw hamburger meat and I was squeezing the blood out of it and putting it in a syringe and putting it in Lily's mouth to try to save her life. Like not wanting to kill that roach, I really did not want to do that. But I did it to try to save Lily, but it didn't work. She hadn't eaten in a week, she hadn't drunk in a week, that's why I was trying to give her the blood. And she hadn't moved in a week because she was so weak. So she's on my lap, and Donna puts this tube around her for 8 minutes or so, and then I put her on the ground, and she walks. She's like alert enough that she wants to know where she is, so she's walking around. That blew my mind. So that machine was a pulsed electromagnetic field machine. The next day I went out and bought my first one for $25,000 because that really impressed me. So then Donna said, she puts down a bowl of water and she said, does she want some water? I said, I don't know, she's not drinking. Lily drank the water. And so I'm looking down and I see this little stone in the water. I said, what's a stone? And she said, it's radioactive. I run to the other side of the room because I'm like so holistically oriented. I don't want x-rays in my teeth because I really don't believe in radiation. And she's telling me that there's a radioactive stone there. So that began a whole process for me of learning and relearning that led to that book. So it turns out that low-level radiation, so I like homeopathy. When my daughter was 7, she had 106 fever. I called the pediatrician and I said, she's beginning to not hallucinate, but she's not making any sense. He said, do you have any Nux vomica? And I said, yeah, I happen to. He said, give that to her. So Nux vomica is a poison. But I had the homeopathic dose, and I gave it to Molly, and a half hour later, her fever was down to 101. So homeopathy means that it's Paracelsus, first MD, presumably in history, said dose is everything. So it turns out low-level radiation has very beneficial effects. If you go for radioactive treatment for cancer, if you're in a radioactive bomb, it's high level, it's not low level, but low level is a completely different story. And so one of the research effects, so obviously that's the bomb, that's Hiroshima. So I'm gonna just talk about 2 studies, and Steve, tell me when you need me to stop, because I haven't even gotten to the brain book yet in full. So, just tell me when 10 minutes. I can finish in 10 minutes. So the first study that I'm going to talk about was done with the survivors of Hiroshima. So what they found is that this close in, those people that experienced the effects of the bomb, they were fried to death, basically. They burned to death. This far out, they're looking, these people have no exposure to radiation. These people have a little exposure. These people have more exposure. These people have more exposure. These people with a little exposure have lived longer than these people that had no exposure. A little radioactive energy is not bad for us. It's good for us. It increases fertility, gives you longer life in 1,000 different ways. It's helpful. The next study that I want to talk about, it's not up there, Bernie Cohen, professor emeritus at the University of Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania. So we're talking about New Jersey, and so I also live in New Jersey. I was in New York for 50 years or so when I was running my business, but now I'm full-time in New Jersey. So in New Jersey, if you sell a home, you have to have a radon test. Radon is radioactive. Radon is bad. So a whole billion-dollar industry came up that you have to buy a radon eliminator, you have to hire a radon tester, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, I did that, when I bought my house. I had to do that. You have to do that. So Bernie Cohen decided to do this survey, this study that he thought was going to be a really easy study. It's the largest epidemiological study that's ever been conducted in the US. He took the map of the US and he looked at cancer rates. All over the country, you see cancer rate high here, cancer rate low here. And then on that, he overlaid a map of radon. High radon here. He fully expected to see wherever there was high radon, there'd be high cancer. He didn't get that result. He got the opposite result. So he started slicing up the data. He looked at this variable, that variable, smoking or age or blah, 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 blah. No matter how he sliced up the data, he came up with the same result. He decided, I'm not thinking about this anymore, and he didn't think about it for 5 years. 5 years later, he repeated the study. He got the same result, and he went down to his basement and turned off his radon eliminator machine. So I talk about hormesis means dose matters. Hormesis is that it's something that happens, has an effect in a low dose is different than what happens in a high dose. Okay, this is, y'all know who the guy on the left is? Everybody know who that is? George Reeves? Chris Reeves. George Reeves was the first Superman. So after he fell off his horse, the doctors said that he'd never move any part of his body again. And he went through very extensive physical therapy. He had a very supportive wife. And the doctor said that before he died, he'd accomplished the impossible. What do I want to say about that? Anyway, I'll talk about, there was something else I wanted to say, but I'm going to talk about the woman. So her name is Amy Mullins, and so she was giving a talk. She does give talks. I think she has some TED Talks even. And so a woman came up to her and said, I don't understand, Amy, you're a different height than when I saw you last. And Amy explained, I have prosthetic legs. So you see in the background when she does one of these performances, you know, she's got legs and they're really works of art and they're different heights. And so she can make herself 5'5" or she can make herself 5'9". And so the woman that she said that to, Amy, that's not fair. So here are these two people that just had terrible afflictions that they had to deal with and found a way of overcoming them and living really rich lives. Amy is still alive. And by the way, Chris, this is where I was going to go with Chris. Chris died because his son, he wanted to support his son's athletic interest. And he wasn't feeling that well that day, and he went to see his son play a game, rugby or whatever it was. And I think the weather was not good, and that outing is really what killed him. And the other thing that I want to say is his wife, Dana, just was completely supportive of him and completely believed in his recoverability. I saw her on a show, and she said, Chris is going to walk again. And the interviewer thought maybe she misspoke or he misheard her and said, you hope he's going to walk? No, Chris is going to walk. And in fact, Chris didn't walk, but because of all the research that they did that he sponsored and paid for on using electrodes to stimulate, because we are beings of electricity, so electrodes are giving electrical charge to you. So because of all of the research that they did using him that he paid for, there now are people that were told they would never walk again. They're walking with electrodes and they're walking with difficulty, but they're walking. So her dream did come true in a fashion. So the next book that I'm writing, it's about 70% finished. And frankly, the reason why I'm writing this book is because the first book was too long. And so I just had to have, but this book, this is where it all started for me 15 years ago. I was doing little classes where people were coming in, I was giving them brain exercises. So I could give you an exercise right now if y'all want to do a little brain exercise. I'm going to say 7 numbers. And then you just repeat to yourself back the 7 numbers that I say, and then I'm going to tell you the meaning of it. So I'm just going to pick 7 random numbers. 3, 5, 8, 2, 9, 1. Can you say them all? I think I did 6 that time, right? So this is called sequential processing. Let me see where the, I don't know where the thing is. Well, it'll come up in a minute. So sequential processing is really important because that's your short-term memory. And if you can't remember, I walked into the room to pick this up, and I also need to blow my nose, and I'm thirsty. If you can't remember those steps, you're not functioning. So let me see if I can find the, I'm just going to skip over to the magic number 7. Here it is. So the norm should be 7, that I give you 7 randomized items, numbers, words, whatever, and that you repeat them back. If you have a sequential processing ability of 7, that's good. If you have one, the man that I'm with now, that is not the man that I felt loved me as much as my mother did, but nevertheless, he's good enough. When I got to sequential processing of 10 with him, and then he was scaring me because nobody can do 10 unless you're like, getting a PhD in biological, physical chemistry, astronautics. So what's happening now, though, is that though 7 is the norm and 7 is what we really need to do as functioning adults, a lot of people are not doing 7. So when Johnny comes home from school and the mother says, okay, take off your rain boots, hang your coat, go into the kitchen and get a glass out and pour yourself a glass of water. Johnny's 3. Johnny can remember 3 items. If Johnny's 4, he remembers 4 items. If she gives him more than the number of the age that he is, he can't do it. Unless he's a genius and has a special capacity. So she then gets angry at him because she thinks that he's not following instructions, but he's being who he should be at that age. So I do want to talk about, I want to talk about school. So there was a best-selling book, Why Johnny Can't Read, and the author decided Johnny can't read because we're not teaching phonetics. So they started teaching phonetics, and so that's like, oh, I see a W and an E, and that's we. But when you teach phonetics, you don't teach meaning. So that was a bad decision that was made. We learned from moving. You sit in the desk all day at school. This is good stuff. He's bored. Children can see in 1/100th of a second everything in their field of vision. If you make them look longer, then they're bored. Then it doesn't hold their interest. This is fascinating. So the teacher says, Johnny, I see you looking out the window. Johnny, look at me, Johnny. Something happens it's an ocular event that happens and part of your eye becomes bleached and it actually makes you blind. You don't know it. Your body and the brain has so many ways of compensating and filling in so that you don't realize that has happened, but that is happening if the teachers do that. They say, Johnny, you're not paying attention. So the reason why I use Johnny is because that book, Why Johnny Can't Read. Blinking is important, so if you read all that, it'll tell you everything that you need to know about blinking. So if somebody is blinking, then they're paying attention. If they're blinking a lot, they're learning. And if they're not blinking, they're not paying attention, and then they're about to fall asleep. And they actually have the amount of time. Okay, this is sequential processing. We did that. 6 is good because it's at 6 years old that you begin to develop the ability to have conceptual thinking. So again, if the mother says something to Johnny that involves him doing something other than just following rote orders, if he has to think, he's not really going to do it that well at 6. Handwriting, they're not teaching handwriting anymore. I think, is it true in New Jersey schools they're not teaching, that's what I heard, that they have given up teaching handwriting. Oh my God, that is such a mistake. It does all of these fabulous things. Okay, so yes, these people, these very smart people, they made mistakes, but one good idea makes up for 1,000 bad ideas. Okay, this is Temple Grandin. So she's autistic. I read her first book and I realized, oh my God, she has no unconscious. This is fascinating. So yes, the virtual horse has already left the digital barn. So we're in a digital world. We just got to deal with it. The interesting story about Temple Grandin is that so she experiences things like animals because her prefrontal cortex is damaged. So in thinking like an animal, she's been hired. She has a PhD, and they hire her to figure out what's going on with the animals. So this farm hired her because the horses were going into the stable very cooperatively. And one day they started rearing up and running out and refusing to go in. And so they hired her. She didn't have to think because she doesn't think. She experienced what the horses experienced. What she experienced was being blinded by the light because they had started opening up the back door to the barn. And the horses were being blinded, and that's why they weren't entering. So we're in a digital world. That was just kind of interesting. You know, that market audience of 50 million, how long it took for each of those. And reading, I actually have books, and I prefer reading books. My friend Christopher, hold up what you brought. He showed this to a woman the other day, and she said, oh my God, what is that? She did not know what a newspaper was.
She'd never seen it. She asked what it was.
Huh?
True story.
So a brain learns, unlearns, relearns, and forgets. It does all of those things. Neurologically organized. I really am coming to an end, Steve. I've got 2 more. Okay, so this is a casino. Baby care centers are like this. They don't promote neurological organization. What does neurological organization mean? It means that what you do with your hand, with your foot, with your eye and your ear are all on either the right side or the left side. If you do one with this side and one with this side, you're not neurologically organized, and that becomes a problem. So my daughter was having trouble in school, and I brought her to a man that understood neurological organization, and when she came to me, she had an ear infection. And so she was right-eyed and right-handed and right-footed and left-eared. And so I started putting a plug in her ear to force her to start listening with her right ear so she would become neurologically organized, and she improved in school after that happened. Okay, so blue light, so all the light that we're having here is killing us because it's artificial light. You do not want to have this light at night because they discovered something called melanopsin. They discovered it originally in the eye, and they discovered that if you throw blue light, the melanopsin is interfered with, the production of it. And then a few years later, they discovered it wasn't just in your eye, it's all through your body. So when you expose yourself to blue light at night, blue light is the wake-up light. Blue light happens in the morning sun, but then it fades, and then red light becomes more prominent. If you look at the sunset, it's more red. So blue light, we call it the happy light because, oh, I'm awake, yay, the world is here again. But at night, if you're waking up your brain at night, your brain doesn't want to wake up at night. It wants to go to sleep. Your body wants to go to sleep. So you're waking up your brain, your body wants to go to sleep, and you can't go to sleep because your brain is wide awake. That's the leading cause of insomnia, blue light. So what is blue light? This is blue light. This is blue light. The TV is blue light. Everything that is artificial, except for red light, because you can buy red light and expose yourself to red light, everything else is blue light. And we didn't have to do that. The Russians didn't do that when they developed their phones. They don't use blue light the way we do. So the best advice I can give you is don't just use red light. I have red lights all over my house. People think I'm a whorehouse when they look from the outside. And the other thing is if you look at how animals sleep, they all sleep with their head lower than their heart. And that's how they rejuvenate their brain, because the blood then... I'm standing up. I mean, this is really hard work for my body, for my blood, to go down there and, all from here and then to find its way up to my brain. It's an uphill battle, and we're doing it all the time, whether we're sitting, we're standing, we're running, whatever. But when animals sleep, they sleep with their head below their heart, so they're rejuvenating their brain. We don't do that because we sleep with pillows. And I think I'm at the end.